This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about how Bitcoin is not violence. This is a video I made only after a lot of consideration and a lot of thought. I hesitated a few times before making this, but I think it's a very important video, so I hope you will watch it all the way to the end and share it with your fellow Bitcoiner friends. I want to start with a disclaimer. The opinions expressed in this video are mine alone, and I might be wrong about what I'm about to say, so make sure you do your own research rather than blindly trusting me. And of course, this is the Bitcoin ethos that you verify and you don't trust. I'm going to be talking about a guy who's on Twitter. His name is Jason Lowry, and he is working on a dissertation about Bitcoin. He's a National Defense Fellow. And here's a tweet of his from January 22nd. We're 2 to 3 weeks away from the debut of my thesis about how Bitcoin is actually a new type of digital age electro-cyber war-fighting technology, and I worry that it might make me the single most hated person on Bitcoin Twitter. So I'm going to initiate this discussion of Lowry, and I think he's right. I think a lot of people are not going to like what he has to say. Here's another tweet from August of 2021 by Jason. Bitcoin is digital violence. We are adopting the functional surrogate to war, projecting force across time and energy in a battle for our property rights, far less messy, far more efficient, far more indiscriminate than analog violence, but the same fundamental end state. Bitcoin is digital violence, or Bitcoin is violence. I want to make this really, really clear to everyone. This is absolutely not true at all what Jason is saying. Bitcoin is not a weapon. It's not a tool of violence. In fact, Bitcoin is a non-violent movement. It's an opt-in voluntary system. It's completely voluntary, and you don't have to participate if you don't want to. And in fact, the situation we have here is actually the inverse. All of the violence is actually on the side of our fiat overlords and on the side of the US Treasury and the Fed, etc. And this is the threat, of course, from the fiat overlords, and it's how the US dollar system has held together so far. Use our US dollar or we will bomb your country. Use the US dollar to pay your taxes or we will put you in a cage. So this is a system of violence. Fiat is a system of violence, and no one likes fiat. The only way you can really enforce it is at gunpoint, whether it's gunpoint at the level of a country or gunpoint at the level of the individual taxpayer. So fiat is an involuntary, violent system. I never voted for it. I don't like it. It was imposed on me using violence. By contrast, Bitcoin is a voluntary system. You don't need permission to mine Bitcoin. You don't need to get permission to run a node. You don't need to get permission to set up a wallet or to send or receive a transaction. Bitcoin is a peaceful movement that allows you to defend your property rights without ever needing to resort to violence. You just need your 12 words or your 24 words, and your savings are completely secured. Now, I believe that Jason Lowry's work is almost certainly a psyop. Again, this is my personal opinion, and I may be wrong, but it really feels like a psyop, a psychological operation, or a setup to me. It may be part of a larger attempt to turn public opinion against Bitcoin by associating Bitcoin with various undesirable groups as portrayed by the media: domestic terrorists, gun-toting vigilantes, racists, white supremacists, drug dealers. Bitcoin is just used for illegal operations, this sort of propaganda that we hear. And we've already seen some of this online. Here's a Business Insider article about how white supremacists have made massive profits through Bitcoin. New analysis suggests, and here's an ADL report about how white supremacists are using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to fund their operations. Should we ban cars, knives, airplanes, fire because some bad people use them? Of course not. And I would argue that Bitcoin, like most technology, is a neutral thing. It can be used for good or for evil. Bitcoin is neutral, permissionless money, and it's for everyone. It's for the far right. It's for the far left. It's for the center and centrists. It's for people with conventional ideas. It's for people with weird ideas. Bitcoin is for your friends, and most importantly, Bitcoin is for your enemies, because we don't want to have some centralized group saying who can use the money and who can't use the money. That's the current system, and it doesn't work very well if you've ever been on the receiving end of not being able to use the money in your bank account, having accounts turned off, etc. And I'm very lucky this has never happened to me, but it certainly happens all over the world. It happens when you have bail-ins, as we had in Cyprus, and people's money was stolen, etc. So Bitcoin is neutral money, it's permissionless money. Bitcoin is money for everyone, for the left, for the right, for good people, for bad people. And the nice thing about this is we don't even need to decide who the good people and who the bad people are. We don't need someone in the MSM, in the mainstream media, to tell us. We can decide for ourselves. And yet we need to keep money completely neutral so anyone can use it. And in this way, Bitcoin is a huge improvement on the existing system. And just like fire, there are going to be people who use fire to cook their food and heat their homes, and there'll be people who use fire as a weapon to burn down other people's homes and buildings. But this does not make fire a bad thing. Fire is a very neutral thing. In the same way, Bitcoin is almost like a force of nature. It's a neutral thing. So I don't like what Jason Lowry's doing here. I think this is a very questionable thesis. A lot of people on Bitcoin Twitter have called him a spook, and he likes to joke about it. A spook meaning a spy or someone who's meant to infiltrate the Bitcoin movement and cause problems. Here he's joking about being General Jason Spook Lowry of the U.S. Hash Force. Actually, he's on the U.S. Space Force, but this is the joke he's making. But the thing is, there are often accusations of someone being a spook, and it's a way of shutting down discussion. But in the case of Jason Lowry, if you go and look at his LinkedIn and look at his bio and look where he's studying and what he's studying, he actually has the bio of a spook. And just the fact that he would, of all the things you can talk about with Bitcoin, the fact that he would try to push Bitcoin into this category of being violence, I think it's disgusting, and I think it's completely wrong. I think it's intellectually dishonest, and he's either a very stupid person or he has ulterior motives. Now, this is a good reminder, and again, those are just my personal opinions, so please don't sue me. There may be spooks in Bitcoin chat rooms and forums that you visit, and at times, especially as this Bitcoin movement takes off, they may infiltrate these rooms, Bitcoin Twitter, etc. They may be in my YouTube comments as well, and they may suggest that you do something illegal or violent, or you take place in some insurrection, and there will be these attempts to try to ensnare Bitcoiners and try to make the Bitcoin movement look bad. So it's very important to ignore these people. Don't trust them just because they have Bitcoiner written in their bio and they use all the correct words. Anyone who tells you that Bitcoin is violent or encourages you to use Bitcoin to do something illegal or violent is quite possibly a spook, and you need to be very careful, and you need to just completely ignore them. This is the new age that we live in. It's the age of psychological warfare and entrapment, and I fully expect these weapons to be used against Bitcoin. Whether Jason Lowry is part of this or not, I expect this to happen and to continue to happen. So you need to be very careful out there, and I think it's going to get much worse. If you think it's bad now, just wait until Bitcoin gets to $1 million per Bitcoin, and Bitcoiners start getting blamed for destroying the US dollar and disrupting the US economy and profiting from it. I'm sure this will be the way that Bitcoiners will be smeared. So we all need to be prepared for this future when it comes, and we need to demonstrate to people and emphasize that Bitcoin is not violence. It's a software protocol. It is not violence. It's a neutral software protocol that can be used for a tremendous amount of good. Now, the more people who become Bitcoiners before we have this real war on Bitcoin and the economy begins to collapse and people blame Bitcoiners, this is the what Corey Clipson talks about, the race to avoid the war. We need more and more people to become Bitcoiners and to be exposed to Bitcoin education, so that when this flipping happens, when Bitcoin flips the US dollar for good and shuts down the current system, or helps transition from the current system, there'll be less and less backlash because so many people will already be on the Bitcoin train. So to summarize the conclusion, Bitcoin is voluntary, Bitcoin is peaceful, Bitcoin is not a weapon, Bitcoin is not violence. And we need to make this very clear to people who want to put this thesis out there, that it's very misleading and it's intellectually incorrect. It's factually incorrect as well. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.